The 805 Focus is brought to you in part by Nonprofit Connect. Nonprofit Connect provides superior leadership tools and resources so nonprofit leaders and board members can make valuable decisions to move their organization forward to a sustainable and vibrant future. More information on services online at nonprofitconnect.org.
Kostis?
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here.
Oh gosh, I know you have such an important story to tell. You folks are really busy doing fabulous, wonderful things for our community.
Yes, and having a great time while we're doing it.
I can see that. I can see that. You're always having a great, I think that's probably the key to
Yes,
your
it is.
success.
Yes, it is. We love what we do, and that I think having fun while you're doing it matters. If we're not having fun, then the audience is not going to have fun.
Yeah. So tell us about your season. How, you know, what you had previously, what's coming up, what you're excited about.
Well, we are the premier producer of music theater in the Central Coast. We have been here since 1994, and we have a season that, depending on the year, can count anywhere between, that has been anywhere between 3 and 5 or 6 productions each year, depending on various things.
Okay.
Last year we did 5 shows because it was a very uncertain season and we wanted to keep things kind of flexible. This year we're having 4 main stage operas and 1 other little surprise that will be announced next week or the week after.
Yeah.
So we generally have 2 shows in the fall and 2 shows in the winter and spring.
Okay.
October, November, February, and April, typically. And we do a variety of repertoire from the opera tradition. Opera is, for those who may not, everybody has heard of opera, but basically the easy way to explain is basically a subcategory of music theater where we tell stories in a theatrical form through music, and the words are sung. And that's a tradition that goes back 400 years and is still alive and well. So we do works that are maybe from 100 or 200 years ago, but we also do contemporary works that have been written in the last couple of years. So we try to present a balanced season that has some of the romantic classics that people know and love. We do some lesser known of the classics, and we always do a contemporary American work in each season.
Ah, so 400 years ago it started.
1600.
And where?
In Florence.
Okay,
In Florence,
that's
Italy.
kind of what I thought.
It was kind of a almost like an artificial start, because it was, there was no theater in the Middle Ages. There was rudimentary forms of theater, but generally the church did not allow theater otherwise, unless it was sacred.
Yeah,
so they have the mysteries, and they had various religious themed activities, but theater per se did not exist. So, in the Renaissance, the arts started blossoming again. There's some very educated people in 1600 in Florence. They got together and said, well, we need to create a form of theater that revives the idea of ancient Greek drama, where you have action, you have a story, and then you have music.
Okay.
And that's how opera started. And it has been a fascinating journey for 400 years. It was obviously became extremely popular in Italy and France in the 19th century. It spread all over the world. It's been very, very fecund ground of creation in America and in England in the 20th century. And right now, the United States is sort of the standard bearer of new opera.
Really?
Most of the new operas and most of the successful new operas that are being written are written here in the United States.
Oh, I had no idea about that.
Yes, so there's such a treasure trove of stories. It's about telling stories to entertain, to move, to inspire, and sometimes to challenge the audience. Is the ultimate theatrical experience, and we try to present as wide a spectrum of that experience as possible with our 3 or 4 or 5 operas every year, whatever they might be.
So how did you get interested in and involved in opera?
Well, I have had a love for the theater since I was a child, and then I went on a career track as a musician, first pianist and then conductor, and when I was exposed to opera as a young conductor, that brought together all the things that I love, which is the theater, obviously, stories, all the different languages, different cultures, and most importantly, I discovered that I have a great love and need, if you will, of being in the theater. I love the people, I love what we do, I love what happens on the stage, I love what happens in rehearsal. It's really a magical place, and I just wanted to be there. So,
oh my gosh. Well,
here
you
I
bring
am.
a lot of magic.
I would try.
I mean, you, as a person, you bring a lot of magic. I can see that. I see that all the time.
I try. Thank you. You're very kind.
So, Kostis, let's say that somebody's watching and they're thinking, gosh, you know, I've always wanted to go to an opera. What would you say to them for why they should get in and come to an opera performance?
I think someone who wants to go see an opera, first of all, I think they need to forget what they've been told about it.
Yeah.
It's better to go without assuming anything. The second thing is, look at what the offerings are and find the thing that you think is going to interest you the most. I'm going to be the first one to tell you, is like, not all opera is for everyone. But there is an opera for each person.
Okay.
So I think it's important to me that everybody who comes, we do different types of operas. We do old operas, we do new operas, we do dramas, we do comedies, we do tragedies, we do big stuff, small stuff, and just make sure you read about it and see if this is something that you really like. I mean, the last opera that we did was a comedy. It was everywhere that this is basically a 19th century farcical rom-com, hour and a half long, no intermission. So if you like something lighter, you like toe-tapping tunes, you like slapstick, that's your show. The one we did before, it was Tosca, which is a tragedy that has a lot of death and a lot of high emotion, and it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and it's more grand, and it's, if you want that big romantic, opera night, that's for you. The next opera that we're doing is an American piece that takes place in the Pacific Northwest during the Second World War, and it discusses the lives of 2 women that have been forced from their home. A Japanese American woman whose family has been displaced and incarcerated because of the Second World War, and a Jewish woman who has escaped Germany and married an American. So that's what that show is about. Is a contemporary American drama. And then the last opera that we're doing is this year is by Wagner. It's kind of a fantasy. It's the Valkyrie. Think Game of Thrones thing, Lord of the Rings kind of thing. It's kind of fantasy. It has the famous Ride of the Valkyries. So a lot of tunes that you may have heard, like the music. Some of the music was used in the movie Apocalypse Now. So it's kind of really epic and really over the top, and it's kind of larger than life. If you like that element of fantasy. That's it. We do also do a lot of other programs. So for folks who may not want to commit an entire evening where I just get a taste, we do things like Opera in the Park that we've done at Ealing's Park. Sometimes we do open rehearsals at the Courthouse Sunken Gardens, where we bring the whole cast and the orchestra and rehearse, and people can just bring a picnic and the kids and the animals.
That's a great idea.
And enjoy. So we do that. And we also do a lot of happenings. We perform at a lot of first Thursdays at the Santa Barbara Museum of Art. That's another opportunity to check it out.
Outside there, I've seen.
Sometimes outside, sometimes inside. It really depends on what else the museum has going on. And so we are about. So, but I think it's opera is just a music theater. It's a great show, usually a great story with great music. And ours, we try to. We don't do very long operas. I mean, some people may have heard that opera is long, and we try to keep it under 2.5 hours. Between 1.5 and 2.5 hours is our sweet spot. We try to do repertoire that is accessible, that either the story or the music is something that even if you've never been there, you'll relate to.
Gosh, it sounds like there is something for everybody.
I believe so.
What's your favorite?
Well, it's usually the one I'm working on.
That's a good answer.
So it depends. I like all of them. One of the many reasons I love my job is that I get to study all these different stories, and I get to hear all this music, and it's just so much variety and so many stimuli, and it's just a lot of reading and a lot of fascinating stories, fascinating people.
Now, do you give performances other places besides Santa Barbara?
Opera Santa Barbara is a Santa Barbara company. We perform here in Santa Barbara at the Libero, the Granada, and sometimes the Center Stage Theater, and of course with various community venues. We haven't ventured outside Santa Barbara except during the 2020-21 season, where we took 2 performances to the drive-in in Ventura, because the theaters were closed, and that was the only way we could perform. So we just went to the Concerts in Your Car in Ventura, had a great time.
What a great way to pivot. That's the new word, right?
Yeah.
Since the pandemic?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, we had to keep doing what we're doing. So
how did that go?
It was great. It was great. Because attendance was, as you might imagine, it was not overwhelming, but people really liked it. People were somewhat skeptical about drive-in opera. How's that? And those who came really loved it and asked for more. So it was a new challenge. And but that's the other aspect of the job that I really like. It's never really easy. There's always a new challenge. And the first one that we did was a very dramatic sort of week, because it was going to be a short show. And because it was December of 2020, we had to have a very short rehearsal period.
Oh, yeah.
The show was designed so that the singers weren't actually in contact with one another. It was staged like a radio show, and there were actually plexiglass walls between the singers.
Really?
And the singers could only take their mask off for the dress rehearsal and the performance. The orchestra was behind them, everybody in their own little cubicle. And we had a week of rehearsals, very strict protocols and all that. And the day before the show was on Saturday, early in December, and the day before the show was going to happen, came the announcement that California would do the second shutdown, starting the midnight after our performance.
Oh man!
So I spent most of those. We knew the announcement was coming, and I didn't know if the show can actually happen. It turns out we pretty much hours after our show, when we closed the show, California went into lockdown.
Golly.
And also on that day, because it's outdoors, Concerts in Your Park, next to the ocean in Ventura, and they have these jumbo screens for people to watch the action. Mm-hmm. And if the wind is over a certain strength, those can't fly. Oh. So we came within about 2 or 3 knots of having to not being able to use this. So it was a very dramatic week.
I guess so.
Yeah, here we are.
Oh man, wow. So I know that you you have outreach to other groups and trying to get other people to come in and experience, enjoy the opera.
We'd like to share what we have, and we'd like to reach as many people as we can. That the last couple of years have been a time of innovation, because even before the theaters were open, we were doing music wherever we could. So we went to Ealing's Park, we went to bars and restaurants where music was allowed. We partnered with rock groups and jazz groups, and we had all this other different stuff that we've never done. So, some of our community partners are like the Santa Barbara Museum of Art. We've worked with the Mariachi Festival and activities around the fiesta, and we've sponsored mariachi performances. And this year I'm very excited because we restarted something that we had started in 2019, and then of course it was put on pause, which is to do free performances for students. So this last opera that we did and the next one are going to have a free performance that is exclusive to the school groups. And we had 400 kids in the Lobero the other day, and they loved the show. Of course, it was a comedy, and they loved that. And so we try to do as much of that as possible, and as also to provide as much as free programming. We perform the pianos on State Street. We are we're sort of everywhere.
You are happening.
We are, yes.
Oh my gosh! And did I see something about a pick your own price ticket, or what is that?
Oh yeah. We have a program in which a limited number of tickets are available on a name your own price basis. There are some limitations to that. There's a minimum price, but we recognize that on one hand, opera is a very expensive art form, and we couldn't do what we do if we weren't a nonprofit. So we take donations, but if you come to see an opera performance, ticket sales at best will cover about 35 or 40% of the expense for that production.
Okay.
The rest of it comes from donations.
Yeah.
However, you have to have some ticket income to just pay the bills, and so opera is not cheap. So we try to make we have accessible ticket prices, but we recognize that some folks, based on their financial position at the time, or even their level of interest, they may not want to pay $50 or $60 for a ticket. So we have a limited number of tickets that people can go online. There's no requirement. You don't have to be a singer. You don't have to be a student. Anybody who wants an opportunity to come to the opera and pay less than the full price can buy the tickets.
That's great. That is really great. That just spreads the whole message of opera out to a larger audience.
We want to make it available to as many people as possible for those who really want to come.
Yeah. And so Opera Santa Barbara is a nonprofit.
Correct.
People can make financial tax deductible donations.
Correct.
And I'll bet they can go to your website.
Yes.
And make those donations.
Yes.
There's a donate now button.
Absolutely. operasp.org, and there's a lot of information about the programs that we do, ways to support, and some of the benefits that come with being a donor.
Oh, good.
And,
that's good.
Most importantly, it's for us. It's especially as we're reaching out to more and more people, and we're getting newer audiences. I think it's important to understand that you don't have to be a very wealthy person to support. It's $5, $10, $15. It goes a long way. So it doesn't have to be a large financial commitment. I mean, we are fortunate enough to have large donors, but everybody can be a donor, and I think anybody who appreciates our work can help us, go a little bit further.
I love that. And so volunteers, you use volunteers sometimes?
Yes, our volunteers mostly work for our social events.
Okay. All right.
Checking people in, assisting with wine and concessions and all that. And they are a very lively group whom we call opera ambassadors. They get their own perks, like they get their own parties, they get to come to dress rehearsals, they get to meet the artists.
Nice.
They are another branch of our family. And in a way, the other way that people can help us without actually making a financial commitment is by being artist hosts. Our artists, we rehearse everything here. This is not a tour and bus show that drives in at 5 o'clock and is up on the stage at 8. It takes us 2 to 3 weeks to put the shows on from the bottom up, and our artists, who usually come from, they come these days mostly from California, but from around the country. They need a place to stay, and as you know, Santa Barbara is a very expensive place to rent a hotel. So we couldn't exist without those patrons who open up their homes and welcome artists for 2 or 3 weeks while they rehearse. A lot of these result in lifelong friendships.
That's really
and
great.
Obviously, our artists are pretty remarkable, smart, talented, funny people.
I bet.
So it's fun being around them.
That would be a really fun way to get involved.
And it's invaluable help to us.
Oh, Kostis, you are an inspiration. Thank you so much
for
coming
Siddharth.
on our
Thanks
show
for having
to tell
me.
us
Always
about
a pleasure.
your story. Yes. And thank you for joining us on 805 Focus, and we'll see you next time.